Okay. Sorry, I've been a little bit late. My wife and I went on a trip to New York, so this one's going to be a little fast and dirty. I'm not going to do a lot of editing, but I wanted to go over rabies. I promise it. Here it is. So, rabies is an ancient disease. This has been around for basically as long as civilization. In fact, ancient Babylon actually had a fine codified in their law for if your dog bit somebody else's dog and they contracted rabies. That's how old this is. So, what is it? Rabies comes from a genus called Lysovirus, which isn't super helpful. It's kind of circular logic. Lysa is actually the ancient Greek word for rabies. And it's also the ancient Greek word for violence, which gives you an idea of their thinking on this, right? So, like a lot of the viruses we've covered already, it's zoonotic. It comes from animals. And this one is prolific in that it spreads throughout the animal kingdom. Mammals, it can even affect bird cells and insect cells. So this isn't going anywhere anytime soon. It's on every continent, 150 countries, basically everywhere but Antarctica, which, fortunate for the mammals and avian species down there. So we're never going to get rid of it. So let's talk about pathology real quick. So rabies is spread by saliva. We know this. So a bite of an infected animal, or very rarely an infected person, will get the virus into the bloodstream where it reproduces in the host cells. It is a neurovirus, so it affects the nervous system. So it'll travel up the peripheral nervous system, so arm, leg, wherever the bite is, up into the brain, replicating in the cytoplasm of the cells, right? And from the brain, it'll spread out to other parts of the body, other organs, notably the salivary glands, obviously, hence its ability to spread to other hosts. So the symptoms will usually start appearing anywhere from, if you're really unfortunate, less than a week, all the way up to over a year, depending on where in the body the bite is. The farther from the brain, the longer it'll take before you start seeing symptoms. But usually you're looking at 1 to 3 months. This is unfortunate because the bite mark might be healed already, so you might not actually know what it is that you have. So, as far as what the symptoms are, so you're looking at initially flu-like symptoms, think fever, then you will progress into weakness, vomiting, nausea, confusion, delirium, hallucinations as it gets worse and worse. The most distinctive feature is actually one of the names that we used to call rabies, hundreds of years ago, hydrophobia, which is a fear of water. It's a very interesting symptom. Obviously, it's neurological, wherein the person doesn't want to drink water, cannot swallow water, cannot get it down, to the point that they become violent. They'll throw glasses across the room, and they refuse to take baths. It was actually a very poor way to treat rabies in the past, was trying to dunk people in water because they thought that was what would heal them. Obviously, it didn't work. In fact, once the symptoms start manifesting, it's pretty much a death sentence. We don't have any effective treatments for rabies at this point, making it the most lethal of all zoonotic viruses that we have. So now that we've scared you a little bit, let's talk about risk. So the risk is actually fairly low. About, there are 8 billion people on the planet. We're looking at 60,000 deaths in rabies in the world every year. So statistically speaking, very low, but that doesn't mean that it's not still possible, right? This is large part due to our vaccination efforts with domestic animals. North America and Europe have the lowest instances of rabies, but there are still a lot of species, maybe a dozen species in North America, a handful of species in Europe that still spread rabies. These are wild species, think like your raccoons, skunks, things like that can get rabies, and then if they bite a human, then something to think about. This is especially important going into camping season. Just be very careful around wild animals. Don't treat them like domestic pets. Don't try to pet them. If they bite you, definitely seek medical attention immediately, right? And if you're traveling in places where rabies is a little bit more common, think Sub-Saharan Africa, Southeast Asia, India, for example, about 20,000 people a year die in India of rabies. Avoid things like feral dogs. And certainly if there's a bite at all, get treated. So as far as prevention goes, thanks to one of my personal heroes, Louis Pasteur, famous for many great things, but most notably for this, the vaccine for rabies. There is a treatment before symptoms set. So if you are bitten by an animal, there is, we call it a rabies vaccine, that can prevent the symptoms from progressing. Again, before the symptoms, you can still be safe from rabies. Once the symptoms set in, there's not really much that can be done, which is tragic, but it is what it is. And of course, we also have vaccines for domestic animals and pets and stuff. And even there have been efforts in some countries like Indonesia, Bangladesh, vaccinating the feral or wild dogs to try to avoid the spread of rabies, right? Other things you can do for prevention, especially I want to bring this up because I think a lot of people don't think about it. Bats. Bats are one of the bigger spreaders of rabies. There's another type of virus, the lysovirus, in bats alone, and is spread, especially in South America. They're seeing a lot of it, but if you live in the United States or in Europe, those are going to be the species that you see it in the most. So if you wake up in a room and there's a bat, just assume that you've been bitten. They have a numbing agent in their saliva, so you may not even feel the bite. Just assume, and if you find a bat in a room with a small child, just assume again that child has been bitten. Go ahead and get them treated for rabies. It could save your life, right? And if you're traveling in any of the, like I said, 150 countries where rabies is indigent, just don't play with wild animals. Be smart, right? As far as the future goes with rabies, we're not getting rid of it. It's a zoonotic virus, and like I said, it's prolific. It spreads throughout dozens of mammalian species, particularly. It is not going anywhere. The best we can do is have a concerted effort to vaccinate pets and any wild animals that we spend a lot of time near, certainly like zoos and such, and hope that as we get better and better at treating viruses, that we'll be able to find a cure to treat people once symptoms set in. In the meantime, it's just trying to be safe and take care of one another. So that's rabies in a nutshell. Sorry, this video is a little bit messier. Like I said, I just wanted to get it out to you guys. If you think I missed anything or if I said something wrong, please let me know in the comments. Please like and subscribe. And as always, take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. Love you guys.